In this lesson, we'll review the layers making up our final Photoshop image, and then we'll conclude our course. So first of all, this is the image that has now been finished in Photoshop. It does have a series of layers which are overlaying on top of it. So I invite you just to have a look at them individually. Have a look at the type of blending mode that is used as well as the opacity, because those are the two that are mainly attributed to the type of changes that you can see that they create. The one that I'd like to point out specifically is the vignette layer, which is just a single glowed sphere that has been blurred, and it is giving us the impression of a vignette because it's brightening the center of our image. So instead of going and darkening the edges, I prefer to rather brighten the center. So right now I'm busy moving that object around, and you'll have a look as well that you can drag the corners out, and you pretty much have full control over where you would like that vignette to be localized. So it's for this reason that I prefer to do it like this in Photoshop instead of using the vignette in my V-Ray camera, or even the vignette that is available through the distort and lens correction that we have here in Photoshop. So there you have a vignette as well, where you can go and darken your corners. So I definitely prefer to use that glow, and it's pretty much the same story with every other layer. You can control them individually, you can rotate them, and you can darken and lighten them using the opacity. So that allows you to have maximum control over your images. So now that we've finished talking about the actual Photoshop layer, I just want to say a big congratulations to you for watching this entire course, or what coming up to lesson 50. It is by far one of the longer courses that I have authored for digital tutors, and this is because it involves or includes much more detail in the entire workflow. Most of the other courses just fly through certain areas where we've rather spent much more time in this course to explain and go through a higher detailed object and more resolution to the way that we actually go and create our building. So as one of the main takeaways from this course, I think what I'm trying to convey through the way that the workflow is set up is that everything is done for speed and efficiency, and it's done especially for ease of editing. What that means is that if I now go to my model and I need to change something, I can go down in my modifier stack and I can hopefully edit a editable spline or a simple 2D editable poly, instead of working with complex 3D shapes that are much more difficult to work on. So that's the reason why we had multi-sub-object materials instead of splitting up all of your objects into separate entities. So have a look again at the model, and you can feel free to just go through the modifier stacks and just have a look at how things are created, and especially where things are instanced. For example, if you are texturing the walls, you want to definitely instance that UVW map to all of the other similar wall areas, so that if you make a change to one, they're all going to be changed. The last thing you want to do is repeat your actions as you work on the edits, because edits are always going to happen in a design workflow. There's nothing we can do to change that, because it's never right the first time. It's always going to be a washing machine cycle after cycle after cycle. So setting up your model for that type of workflow is quite critical, because it's always quick to do it the first time, but if it's not done right the first time, then making the tiniest of edit will take as long as creating the whole thing in the first place. So that is one of the main things that I'd like to stress. And then the second point, as the general takeaway, is a theme that I seem to have going with all of the content that I'm creating, is that I would like to carry across the message of creativity and design and impression over the technical abilities that you are learning here. So even though I'm giving you all of these tips and techniques and these workflows, the main thing for you to try and extract out of the entire process is how to think like a designer, how to work like an architect, and how to solve problems while you are working on the 3D model and while you're working on the CAD files, because you constantly need to be in the brain space that this is a real project. You're actually doing something for real people that are going to be investing real money into this. It's not just about making a cool looking image that has very good properties and low noise and reflectivity to the moon and back, you're actually creating something that's going to be physically built. And you definitely want to keep that in mind, that somebody is going to be living in this house for X number of years. If you're working on a hotel or any other project, these things are going to be around for a long, long time. So the image at the end of the day isn't that important. What's important is the content that you're creating and the creative input that you're able to add to that work. If you're just working as a visualizer, then I would still urge that you understand what the design and narrative and the concept is behind the work that you're doing. So try to have a conversation with the designers if you are not directly responsible for the design, and just try and understand what they want to express through the image. Because at the end of the day, you can have 100,000 subdivisions, and if your design doesn't look good, your client is still going to reject the work, not because your technical expertise was not good enough, but because the design or the message that is conveyed through the design didn't speak to him personally. And that's always going to be the case. Subjective or objective, your clients are always going to react to things emotionally. They're going to have a look at the budget, and they're going to have a look at the story that your work is telling them through what you are creating. So just keep that in mind, and no matter how much you learn, just try to keep those creative juices flowing and try to keep that storytelling ability within your work. So just as a last paragraph to this conclusion, I wanted to mention that this course is the second part of a three-part series, where the building that we're looking at right now has been done in AutoCAD in the first of those three series, or first part of that three-part course. This is now the second one that we've finished, which is the building exterior as well as the workflow leading up to that. And then the third course, which is going to follow this one and be released in approximately 8 weeks' time, is going to be one that is focusing on the interiors as well as more of the detailed objects that we see. So we're going to model the exterior furniture, we're going to model the lounge, we're going to do a bedroom, and we're just going to look at the typical interior renderings that everyone has to deal with. And then we're going to look at how we can model up the furniture, where we can find the furniture online, and how we can put it all together and work with our scene, especially once the amount of geometry is starting to get high. So all of that is going to conclude this amazing three-part series, which is going to be a full architectural workflow, which means that if you do watch all three courses, you would pretty much have a full understanding and capability to work and think like an architect, because there is nothing that you now won't be able to do. So with all of that said and done, I want to finally give you one more large congratulations, and especially that this is now course 50 and you have invested a lot of your time. So I want to thank you for all of the attention that you have given this course and all of the time that you've given up to pursue the learning and the passion that you have for what you're doing. So most importantly, keep those creative juices going, keep that spirit and the energy that you have in your work going high, because the more love and energy you put into your work, the more that work is going to shine in your client's eyes, and the more successful the results are always going to be. So once again, I bid you farewell, and I wish you have a very good day, and especially I wish you all the best of luck with your work and your future endeavors. So thank you very much for watching the course, and I do hope that you can watch the one to follow. So once again, thanks and goodbye.